I think just the energy that you get from walking into a room where everyone's ready to get after it and try and win. You don't necessarily have that when you wake up, when you walk to your den or you walk to your kitchen table and you decide you're going to open up your laptop and do sales activities.
So sales culture to me means a couple different things. It means celebrating your sales team within your company and then also celebrating the sales that your company makes. We do that in a few different ways. We put each of our sellers into a pod and we have an award that we call the Pod of Gold. So every quarter, the pod that hits their target or exceeds their target, we take them out to dinner and every pod in our company can win. That's a big part of the idea of sales culture in my mind, is that it's a culture that doesn't only exist on the sales team, it needs to exist across the company.
Going remote and everyone working from home, I found that there was way too many Zoom meetings, but luckily our sales culture, we're pretty open when it comes to like our communication. So we figured out pretty quickly and readjusted and pulled back on the meetings. That way it gave our sellers more time to actually be selling and not be in internal meetings.
When we went remote, we had to focus on not just one channel of communication. We had to make sure that we had a multi-channel approach. Slack, for example, can be tough for a salesperson because it tends to be somewhat instantaneous, but if you go 2-3 hours with a bunch of Zoom calls and you come back to a bunch of Slack messages, well, those all of a sudden aren't really conversations, more of just reactionary, shooting information back and forth. So to find ways to have conversations, we had to get more creative, and that was putting placeholders on the calendar to have that conversation time and not just with a stock full agenda.
Some of the really simple things that you can do if you're trying to create a sales culture is make sure that everyone in your company is aware of what the sales team is doing. So we have an open sales channel that anyone can join. We celebrate really small wins in that channel and really big wins. So we celebrate when deals come into our pipeline and we call out the BDR that has booked it and the account executive that's accepted it. We share when our account executives close deals, why did this deal close? So what were the technical, personal, and business pains? How long did the cycle take? And especially for new reps, they get to see how much winning is going on the team. It goes back to the old adage, if a tree falls in a forest and no one was there to hear it, did it even make a sound? That's why sharing the small wins, no matter how small, really add up to creating a great sales culture. If you're looking to beef up your sales culture or add to it, one of the easiest ways to do that is to start celebrating smaller wins more often and doing that more broadly across your team's communication platform.
A few things that I found helpful was creating things like a calling power hour. So all the BDRs will hop on a Zoom call. One person will bring a pump up, whether it's like their favorite song, sometimes it's a funny video, anything to just get people's heart rates up or get them laughing. And then they'll hop off Zoom, they're all dialing together for the next hour, and then they're keeping the chatter go in Slack, similar like you would in the office. It's all over, Slack right now. And then we'll hop on again at the end and say like, this is how many meetings I booked, or this person said this to me.
I implemented sales plans with all of my account executives, even though they were all doing great. And I know sometimes people think sales plans are a negative thing, but to me, I wanted them all to own their own numbers. I thought that was really key because to me, when you're working from home, it feels more autonomous. And I think naturally there's more autonomy to it. I think the more as a manager you can do that and empower your reps, the better off the team will be, because naturally you just can't be there for them at every moment. And so you want to make sure that they feel like they know where to go when they have a question, or they know where to go when they need support from others.
Another thing that I've started doing is having just like team syncs with no real agenda. I find just having those meetings syncs without much of a solid agenda actually gets the team talking a little bit more and just builds that culture and trust between them. And sometimes even as a manager, I'll not attend those meetings so that they can bond as a team without me, because I want to make sure that the culture is there with or without me on the calls.
The other thing too was just making sure that there was clear communication, and you can do that with a lot of the tools today. Like everyone knew where they stood, and we were very transparent with all of our numbers. So by doing that, it's not you're not whispering about sales numbers or how the performance is trending. That's very much top of mind, speaking about it almost daily or at least a couple times a week in one-on-ones with the sales reps, making sure there's clear discussion around how each rep is progressing.
So I think one of the concerns we had going into a remote culture would have been on the training front. We had a few new AEs starting. I was actually fairly new still too, so there was that learning curve where we weren't able to just share information just randomly like we would in person. We had to make time for that by having Zoom calls or creating documentation. But actually made a huge difference down the road when we started hiring even more people. Now that everything was documented and we had more processes, it did make onboarding new reps a lot more efficient and easier.
One of the things that we've had to be intentional and kind of careful about is making sure that when we celebrate, we don't just celebrate the person that did the last step in the process. So I've even had trouble, gotten into trouble or caught myself when our account executives close a deal, just saying, congrats Devin or congrats Mark, and not mentioning the BDR. So when you're doing these celebrations or you're making these posts, make sure that you celebrate the entire process, because revenue is a team sport. And if a BDR found that deal and a marketing campaign brought it in, make sure that those people or teams are part of the celebration. I love seeing when we close a deal now that we have folks from our product or our engineering team or our marketing team jumping in and saying, way to go account executive, but also way to go BDR for getting that call booked and that meeting scheduled. And also shout out to our marketing team for creating some great content or driving some really awesome traffic through some great paid ads. Getting that whole picture and that whole celebration really is what makes the sales culture stick and gets everyone excited about celebrating it.
We hope you enjoyed the first episode of The Closing Show. You can help the channel make more content by liking and subscribing to Proposify on YouTube. Leave a comment and let us know what you'd like to see in a future episode.